fight, flight, freeze, and follow response. What if the most dangerous survival response isn't to fight, run, or freeze, but to blindly follow? The reptilian brain has been with us for over 500 million years. It's ancient, it's automatic, and in true danger, it can save your life. But in the modern world, where threats are often manufactured, exaggerated, or manipulated, it can become a trap. Most people know about the 3 survival responses: fight, flight, and freeze. These are primal reactions designed to protect us in the face of immediate danger. But there's a 4th response that's rarely talked about, and it's the one that mass manipulators love the most. It's the follow response. This is the instinct to submit to perceived authority when overwhelmed with fear, to look for a leader, to obey the loudest voice in the room, to conform to the group, even when the group is headed straight off a cliff. In nature, this makes sense. A frightened animal in a herd will follow the majority, safety in numbers. But in human societies, this reflex has been weaponized. Consider any historical period of mass control: dictatorships, religious crusades, witch hunts, genocides. These were not led by monsters alone. They were enabled by ordinary people, terrified and confused, who defaulted to the follow response. They chose compliance over courage, silence over skepticism. Why? Because their fear response was triggered. And once that happens, the brain isn't interested in truth. It's interested in safety, even false safety, even deadly safety. Now, think about how modern governments, media, and corporations exploit this. They introduce a threat, real or imagined. They amplify it, repeat it, dramatize it, until you're emotionally exhausted. And then, like a savior appearing in the storm, they offer a path. Follow the rules, trust the experts, stay in line. And just like that, freedom is exchanged for the illusion of safety. But here's the hidden danger. The more you activate your survival responses, the more they become your default. Chronic fear rewires the brain. Your higher thinking centers go offline. Your capacity for independent thought shrinks. You start needing direction, craving it, depending on it. This is why so many people begin to identify with their oppressors. Why citizens start defending the very systems that limit them. It's not loyalty, it's neurological conditioning. Let's break it down further. Fight responses often turn into rage mobs and tribalism. Flight responses turn into apathy and escapism. Freeze responses turn into paralysis and helplessness. Follow responses turn into blind obedience. And in a fear-driven society, all 4 are exploited simultaneously. Protests become violent, justifying more control. Citizens retreat into distractions, leaving the system unchallenged. Others freeze in confusion, accepting whatever is handed to them. And the majority follow, marching in lockstep toward manufactured futures. But here's the truth they don't want you to know. You have a 5th option, one that's not primal, but conscious. It's the choice to pause, to breathe, to observe, to question, and to engage the part of your brain that they cannot control, your awareness. This is what separates slaves from sovereigns, victims from visionaries. The moment you stop reacting and start reflecting, you begin to reclaim your mind. Yes, fear is powerful, but awareness is stronger. Because once you become aware of the pattern, you're no longer trapped in it. The next time you feel afraid, ask yourself, is this my fear or someone else's agenda? Is this danger real or manufactured? Am I acting or reacting? Refuse to blindly follow. Choose to consciously respond. Fear-based messaging. The oldest political trick in the book. When logic fails, fear always works. And they've known that for thousands of years. Every empire, Every regime, every authoritarian movement, they all rely on the same basic formula. Create a threat, amplify the fear, then offer yourself as the solution. It's not new, it's not sophisticated, but it works. And it all starts with fear-based messaging. Fear bypasses rational thought. It shuts down critical thinking and puts your brain into a survival state. And in that state, people don't analyze, they obey. That's why fear has always been the most effective tool for mass manipulation. Look back through history. In ancient Rome, emperors used fear of invasions and barbarian tribes to justify expanding their armies and limiting civil freedoms. In medieval Europe, fear of hell and heresy kept entire populations obedient to the church. In the 20th century, fear of communism, terrorism, or foreign enemies became the excuse for wars, mass surveillance, and erosion of human rights. But today, the game is more advanced and more psychological. Modern politicians, corporations, and media architects understand that they don't need to control your body to own you. They just need to control your nervous system. And so, they flood you with images of crime, pandemics, collapsing economies, and moral decay. They speak in apocalyptic terms: crisis, emergency, threat level red. They constantly remind you of enemies, foreign or domestic, visible or invisible. And then they step forward with promises of safety, order, and salvation. But these solutions always come with a price. More surveillance, less privacy, more censorship, less autonomy, more laws, fewer rights. And here's the trick. They make you ask for it. They make you demand your own submission. Because once you're scared enough, you'll beg for chains as long as they promise protection. That's the genius of fear-based politics. It turns the oppressed into volunteers, even when the threat is real, like a virus, a conflict, or an economic collapse. The manipulation is in how it's presented. Facts are exaggerated. Outliers are framed as trends. Context is stripped away. And fear is always front and center. Why? Because fear divides. It creates us versus them. It turns neighbor against neighbor, citizen against state, and person against their own instincts. It erodes solidarity, trust, and independent thought. It creates a fragmented society that's easier to control. But what if we rejected the fear script? What if we recognized fear-based messaging when we saw it and refused to participate? What if we demanded leaders who inspired courage, clarity, and critical thinking instead of panic, division, and obedience? That would be revolutionary. Because fear-based control only works if the people stay unconscious. The moment you wake up to the tactic, it loses its power. You don't have to live in fear. You don't have to surrender your mind. You don't have to believe everything you're told. Remember this. Fear is a tool, but so is awareness. And awareness is the one thing they can't fake, fabricate, or force. Once you have it, they lose you. And when enough people wake up, the oldest political trick in the book finally stops working. Why logical thinking shuts down under fear. Fear doesn't just shake your hands, it shuts down your brain. Imagine standing on the edge of a cliff. Your legs shake, your heart races, and your breathing quickens. In that moment, your brain isn't calculating safe distances or thinking rationally. It's screaming, "Step back." This is your reptilian brain in action, the oldest part of your brain responsible for survival. When fear strikes, this primal region takes over, silencing your logic and reason. That's not just instinct, it's biology. And those who understand this biology can control the masses without them even realizing it. The brain has three major parts: the reptilian brain, the limbic system, and the neocortex. The reptilian brain is the oldest, responsible for fight, flight, freeze, and basic survival responses. The limbic system handles emotions, and the neocortex is the seat of logic, creativity, and planning. But here's the catch. When fear is triggered, blood flow is redirected away from the neocortex and toward the reptilian and limbic systems. In other words, fear literally starves your logical brain. This is why in high-stress moments, even intelligent people can make foolish choices. They aren't stupid. Their logic is offline. Politicians, media experts, and social manipulators know this very well. If they can keep you afraid, they can keep you from thinking clearly. History gives us countless examples. During wartime, entire populations support violence they'd never accept in peacetime. Why? Because they're scared. Fear shuts down the ability to ask, is this the right thing to do? People accept mass surveillance, censorship, and even the stripping of their rights when they're told it's for their safety. They don't stop to question. They can't. Their logical brain is asleep while fear rules the mind. This manipulation isn't new. Religious leaders once used fear of hell to keep followers obedient. Governments use fear of enemies, real or imagined, to justify military spending and domestic crackdowns. The media broadcasts images of crime, disease, and disaster, knowing that every jolt of fear glues your attention to the screen. But the most dangerous part? Most people don't know this is happening. They think they're making choices, but in reality, they're reacting to fear that someone else planted in them. Fear-based decisions feel urgent. They feel necessary, but they're usually the exact opposite of rational. Think of advertising. Marketers use fear to sell products. Fear of missing out, fear of not fitting in, fear of aging, fear of being unsafe. Insurance companies thrive on this. So do pharmaceutical giants. They show you the problem, make it terrifying, and then offer you a product as the only solution. This bypasses logical evaluation entirely. Children who grow up in fearful households often develop overactive reptilian responses. They're jumpy, anxious, and easily manipulated later in life. Their baseline becomes fear, and that makes them perfect citizens for fear-driven societies. Scared people don't rebel, they obey. In group settings, fear spreads like wildfire. One frightened person can infect a room with panic. That's why false alarms can cause stampedes. And it's also why controlled fear is used in propaganda. A terrified population will beg for control. They won't question authority. They'll even turn on each other, seeing anyone who disagrees as a threat. So how do you protect yourself? First, recognize when fear is speaking. Are you reacting, or are you thinking? Did you pause to question the source of your fear? Often, fear wears a mask. It pretends to be logic. It says, I'm just being realistic, when in truth, it's hijacking your brain. Second, slow down. Fear wants speed, fast decisions, quick actions. It hates silence. But if you can pause, breathe, and reflect, you begin to activate your neocortex again. The moment you question your own thoughts, you begin to reclaim your mind. Third, reduce your exposure to fear triggers. News media is a constant stream of alarm. Turn it off. Be selective about what you consume. Your brain is not designed to handle global fear on a daily basis. Finally, educate yourself. Understand how fear works in your body and brain. Learn to recognize the signs. Shallow breathing, tight muscles, racing heart. These are not signs of clarity, they are signs of hijack. When you understand the biology of fear, you no longer become its slave. You become aware, and awareness is freedom. Fear isn't the enemy, but unconscious fear is. Once you see how it works, You can choose whether to follow it or not. That choice is what makes you free in a world that thrives on fear. Mass panic and groupthink. The dark power of collective fear. One person in fear can be calmed, but a group in fear becomes a mob. Picture a theater where someone yells fire. Panic spreads instantly. People push, run, scream, not because they see flames, but because others are afraid. This is the terrifying power of collective fear. It takes rational individuals and transforms them into one blind, trembling creature. It's called groupthink. And it's not just dangerous, it's weaponized. When fear hits a group, individual thinking dissolves. People stop asking, "What do I believe?" and start asking, "What is everyone else doing?" The need to belong overrides the need to be right. This is why entire populations have followed dictators, supported wars, or participated in atrocities, because they were caught in a tidal wave of collective fear. Groupthink feeds on conformity. In fearful environments, disagreement feels like betrayal. People don't just stay silent, they self-censor. They repeat what they're told, not because they believe it, but because it's safer. Fear punishes the outsider. The one who questions becomes the enemy. This is why tyrannical regimes always start by creating a fearful us versus them narrative. They blame a group, outsiders, immigrants, political rivals, and use fear to unite the majority. Once the fear is planted, the majority becomes easy to control. They don't need proof. They just need someone to blame. Fear is contagious. It spreads faster than logic. One emotional speech, one viral video, one manipulated headline, and suddenly millions believe the same thing without ever thinking critically. Social media makes this worse. Platforms reward outrage. Algorithms amplify fear. People share panic faster than peace because fear is sticky. It grabs attention and holds it hostage. In this chaos, truth doesn't matter, only emotional resonance. The louder the fear, the more it feels like truth. But that's the trick. Feeling isn't fact. Yet in a group setting, people confuse them. Crowds in fear crave strong leaders. Not thoughtful ones, not wise ones, just loud ones. They want someone to promise safety, to silence doubt, to punish enemies. And this is where the manipulators thrive. They rise in the noise, offering simple answers to complex problems. They don't ask you to think. They just want you to follow. The dark irony is that people often feel more certain in groups than alone, even if the group is wrong. Fear gives false unity. It makes people feel powerful when they're actually being controlled. Mass hysteria has led to witch hunts, false arrests, moral panics, and genocide. And every time, it starts the same way. Fear is seeded, the group absorbs it, and then logic dies. But collective fear isn't invincible. There are ways to resist. Awareness is the first shield. Ask yourself, is this fear mine, or did I catch it from someone else? Who benefits from my panic? What facts support this fear? If you can't find clear, balanced evidence, it may be a weapon disguised as truth. Second, step out of the group momentarily. Spend time alone. Solitude helps detox groupthink. It allows your original thoughts to surface. Journal, reflect, ask hard questions. Reclaim your own voice. Third, seek out diverse opinions. Don't just listen to your bubble. Bubbles reinforce fear. Opposing views, even if uncomfortable, can wake up your thinking. And most importantly, remember this. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the refusal to be ruled by it. Fear will always exist, but groupthink is a choice. Don't let the loudest crowd choose your truth. Stand still in the storm and think, and